All right, good morning again, everybody. We are going to get started. If you have just joined us, send us a quick message that you can hear the webinar, just so that we verify the technology is working. All right, your microphones are on mute. Please feel free to type and send questions at any time. We will answer them throughout the webinar. There will also be time for questions at the end. A handout with the highlights from this webinar was emailed to you if you were registered and is also currently posted on our grant making page. If there are a group of you in a room participating in the conference, all of those individuals representing the various organizations need to register individually and log on individually. The information sessions for high impact is a requirement to apply. Therefore, we need to verify participants and the organizations they represent. So please email us if you do not have a link to register to this webinar, and you should email at program@FresnoRegFoundation.org. Again, if you have not logged on as an individual participant, please take the time at this moment to email us at program@FresnoRegFoundation.org and request the link to register and log on to this webinar.
I'm going to send it to all of them.
Also, Kelvin just informed me that he is sending the link to those who are on the chat right now so that you have the link. Okay, let's go on. So this is our high impact grants information session. I want to introduce the program staff. We have in our conference room at the moment Kelvin Alfaro, our program officer, who helps lead the competitive grant making program. Also on our team is Michelle Murphy. She is our foundation support specialist for programs. She is in the office, just stepped out of the room for a moment. And I am Sandra Flores, the senior program officer for the foundation. Just a little bit about our foundation. We are a 501c3 community foundation. We serve the Central San Joaquin Valley since 1966. Next year we will celebrate our 50th anniversary, and our regional footprint includes Merced, Mariposa, Madera, Fresno, Kings, and Tulare counties. Our foundation assets are just over $60 million, and here are the funds that comprise the assets. They include an operation endowment fund for the foundation, donor advised funds, field of interest funds, scholarship, or discretionary funds. And we do support a family foundation, which is referred to as a support organization. The foundation has 5 competitive grant making cycles. The first we have completed for 2015 is Arts and Culture. We are in committee review phase for the Youth and Teen Pregnancy Prevention Grant priorities. This, of course, is High Impact, which we have just opened. And our last competitive grant cycle for the year will be the Environment. Okay, before we get started, we just want to gauge who is out there in the webinar world. If this is your organization's first time applying to the Fresno Regional Foundation, please let us know. Select yes or no or not sure. If you're a new staff member just joining your organization and you don't know if they've applied to us, just select not sure. So again, we're going to take a moment to take a quick poll. Let us know who's out there. So how many of you have applied to us before? Select yes, those no, and those not sure. Here we go.
We're going to close the poll.
Closed it. Let's see what our results are. All right, we've got 31% of you that have applied to us before. 48, almost half of you have not, and about 21% of you are not sure. Okay, it's a good gauge for us. So will this be your organization? Let's see. We want to know if you are applying to either, or if you're from urban or rural communities, or both. So take a moment to let us know where you're serving, urban, rural, or both. Okay. All right. Let's see. We're going to close the poll in 2 seconds. Here we go. Let's see who. All right. We've got about 17% just urban, 23% just rural, and about 60% of you, over half of you, are serving both. All right. And then our last question, I believe, we want to know whether you will be applying to an accelerator grant, a connector grant, or both. So we'll give you a few seconds here. Yes. Accelerator, which are the 2-year grants, connector, the 1-year grants, or both. And we will go over details in this presentation. So just a few more seconds. We're going to close the poll. All right, so we have about 25% are interested in accelerator, 29 in connector, and we've got almost half of you interested in both. All right, great. Thank you for responding and giving us a little insight as to who is applying. So today's agenda, we will review the goals to fund for both the accelerator and the connector grants for this high impact grant making. We will review the reporting requirements, go over how to apply, and for this very first step of applying for high impact, we will focus on the letter of interest, the LOI. Go over some final tips and then take some questions. All right, we have about $800,000 available for the high impact grant making. We're going to review the funding scenarios, which include accelerator grants, and these are for organizations that are effectively collaborating with others, addressing gaps, and aligning services in the educational pipeline. That's focused on 0 to 8. Also, the connector grants are for organizations that want to coordinate, connect, and share information between different partners in the educational pipeline, again, with a focus on 0 to 8. Interested applicants may apply for more than one funding scenario with a separate proposal for each. All right. We have approximately $800,000 available for organizations serving Fresno, Madera, Mariposa, Merced, Kings, and Tulare counties. Connector grants will range from $50,000 to $75,000, and they are for 1 year. Accelerator grants will range from $100,000 to $250,000 for 2 years. Okay. It's important for applicants to be aware that grant funds are not guaranteed following the term of the 2015 grants. Funding beyond the current year's grant cycle may not be available. We put this in here to share that the foundation may not do this level of grant making in 2016. So the one-year grants for the connectors, which are essentially intended for planning, we want to be very transparent and very clear in our communication that while we will support the year of planning, there is no guarantee that we are going to continue or provide funding at this level for the implementation of your plans. If you are applying for a 2-year grant, there will be funds to cover the entire 2 years of the grant. So the statement is not to alarm you that there will be no funding in the second year. All grants in both Connector and Accelerator will be fully funded. We want to be very clear and set the right expectations for those of you applying for the Connector grant, that while we will support the year of planning, there is no guarantee that there will be funds to support the year of implementation. All right, Accelerator grants. Let's go over those. So the goals to fund are as follows. These grants are intended to support organizations that are already serving children and families, reinforcing the work of other organizations, integrating services, and addressing gaps. Preference will be given to those programs, organizations, groups which serve a significant number of children ages 0 to 8 within a defined geographic region and which are able to demonstrate outcomes or demonstrate specific plans for outcomes within the term of the grant period with clear and distinct benchmarks. The funding for Accelerator grants is guaranteed for the 2-year grant duration. Funding could be used to strengthen a program by deepening the services provided or adding new components of the work. Funding could be used to work with another organization to strategically align services in a way that builds on each program's efforts, creating greater benefit than either of the 2 programs alone could achieve. Adjust an existing program designed to align services with another part of the educational pipeline and pilot test the new program design. This is a component of an overall program. Also, funding could be used to develop an innovative prototype within the program to address a critical gap in the pipeline. Here are the eligibility criteria for the Accelerator grants. We are looking to support organizations that deeply understand the educational pipeline in the San Joaquin Valley from birth to career, and that are looking for ways to align their services, close gaps, and remove barriers to children's success in that pipeline in the critical years leading up to and through the 3rd grade. As a threshold, applicants must meet all of the following criteria. So this means that the committee will go through reviewing the application and they must have a yes beside each one of these criteria. So the applications must meet the following. Provide targeted support to children and families to increase 3rd grade readiness for programs focused on children 0 to 8. Engage parents of children 0 to 8 and provide targeted support for parents to play an active role in student success. Increase parent and school district partnerships. Increase community and school district partnerships. Work in low-income communities with persistently lowest achieving schools. Predominantly serve or benefit children and families in the years leading up to and through the 3rd grade. have a clear understanding of relevant policy issues that impact their organization, field, and services. Have a collaborative attitude. Organization is already coordinating and connecting with other organizations that are working with children and families in the years leading up to and through the third grade. Be able to increase the scale and scope of programs to serve greater number of children without sacrificing quality, and be able to tailor program approaches to the unique context and culture of different student groups and schools. We are continuing on the eligibility criteria. Organizations must demonstrate that they have a strong operating capacity, must participate in a collaborative learning community with commitment to shared learning based on experience, observation, ongoing reflective practice, and strategic planning. Offer a strong rationale for the program details being proposed, and demonstrate how alignment of programs and services have resulted in improved outcomes for children and families living in poverty via use of data to demonstrate that their program is effective and demonstrate expertise and track record of success.
The audio.
So we just got notice that we disconnected from the audio. Now we're connected. So I'm sorry for the delay, but I hope we recorded it. And if you miss anything, please send us a question. So that was a lot. So let me just share the intention that the committee is looking for in the applicant organization focused on the accelerator grants. We are really looking for existing work and partnerships so that you can point to where you have been successful in your work as it pertains to supporting families and children 0 to 8. If there is a new component to your overall program, it's still going to be very important for you to build and make a compelling case based on your track record, and using your track record that is informing the new program design based on your experience. So we are really looking for integrated approaches. The premise that this committee is using is that no one organization can do everything. So how your partners are building on your program success and vice versa. So the integration of programs is going to be a priority for what the committee is looking for. We were very straightforward in the beginning of the eligibility criteria about the parent engagement, how your program is supporting parents, and the relationship between the school district and parents and the school district with community. These are all very important and are required for programs that will be funded in this funding scenario. So let's go over the selection criteria. And these are the items that will cause the applicant's proposal to receive a higher ranking. So while the eligibility are required, these will give your application a boost. Programs that integrate with the community for transformative system change. Programs that leverage resources in the community, and programs that support long-term change that does not require continual grant support. Okay, do we have any questions before we go on? We don't have any questions. All right, let's go on to Connector Grants. So the goal is to fund. Connector grants are intended to fund organizations to coordinate, connect, and share information among the many promising programs and agencies that are working to help children succeed in school by third grade. The Connector grants are intended for organizations that are or can be at the hub of other initiatives and networks. Funding could be used to help multiple stakeholders define success in a clear, concrete way, help stakeholders identify their organization's contributions to the overall goal and identify gaps in services, help others collaborate to close gaps or tap emerging opportunities, work with multiple stakeholders to create shared vision and goals and communicate the vision and goals to the community at large and to potential donors. We also are looking for applications and programs that partner with schools, health centers, parents, and various community stakeholders, understand the educational pipeline and, in particular, the age 0 to 8 continuum of services, demonstrate that the lead organization has capacity or organizational structure to support multi-stakeholder efforts. For example, past experience in leading collaborative efforts, demonstrate staff capacity to support collaborative efforts, experience in facilitating and communicating to multiple stakeholders, identify and broaden existing community partnerships. So these are the requirements for the connector. The interest of the committee is to support the conversations and provide resources to convene the partners. One distinct difference from past years is that they want to invest in existing collaborative efforts. So your collaborative effort did not have to focus on 0 to 8, but they want to see established partnerships in place. So if this is a refocus for your group, that is fine. These are one-year grants, and we are mindful that there may not be another year of funding, so they want to invest in efforts that already know their partners. You can certainly add new ones, but for the most part, your partnerships are in place, your collaboration is in place, so you're not expending the time meeting people, sharing what you're trying to do, and then bring them to the table. So it's a matter of your people, your partners are already in place, and this is what you're going to do. And we're going to take some questions right now.
Or for the selection criteria here, under transformative systems change, someone is asking for you to further explain what transformative means.
So for example, if a program or will address or is going to address English language learners, so maybe it is focusing on how we get our English language learners redesignated as English proficient. Maybe this is a matter of changing the curriculum for the English proficiency. Maybe it's a matter of increasing the testing, the frequency of the testing for the redesignation. But this is clearly a systems or a policy change, and so if you're integrating your work, so while you're actually supporting English language learners, if you are also addressing the system that intersects with that program, that is what we're talking about, and that is just an example. I will also go over leverage resources in the community. This could simply mean you're leveraging the local control funding formula or other grants or other steady funding streams. And support long-term change that does not require continual grant support. Again, we're really trying to guide you and urge you to think about the stable funding streams that would not require the uncertainty of grant support.
We hope that answered your question. The next question we have is regarding the accelerator grant requirements. Predominantly serve or benefit children and families in the years leading up to and through third grade. The question is, does this apply to the organization as a whole or to just the grant?
it applies to the grant. So if your organization has not been working in this space, this will not preclude you, but it will be of interest to the committee to understand how your organization will lead it or contribute to the concerted efforts of your group. So it is not a requirement that your organization work specifically in 0 to 8, but it will be of interest to the committee for you to communicate why you are working in this space. What is your rationale? What are the compelling factors that propelled you to this space? Okay, I hope that answered your question. And we have one more question.
Are direct services fundable under the connector scenario?
Great question. There are no direct services for the connector. This is not for program grants. This is not to support programs. These resources should be used to convene and facilitate the conversations and support the meeting of your group. So these cannot be used for program implementation.
And then last one. Can you explain policy change? I think it's on that.
Policy change in the connector grants. So again, we're really leaving that up to the applicant. We did not offer an advocacy grant this year, but we certainly know the value of policy and advocacy. So we are really leaving that into your space. Well, my example around, let's see, what? It's in the accelerator grant. You're in the connector grant. So we really want to make sure we leave some space for the policy realm, but we are relying on your experience in this work, and we do have an expectation that given the history and the track record of working in this cradle to career space, that you can speak to the policies that are providing challenges or assisting us mitigate some of the challenges. So it has been our experience that the strongest applicants have a clear understanding of the relevant policies that intersect this work. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, let's continue. So we are actually going to go over the deadlines for this grant cycle. We have a quick turnaround. The letter of interest is due July 15th at 5 p.m. The org cards and the application deadline. So if your letter of interest is selected as one of the top ones by the committee, we will notify you and invite you to submit a full application. At that point, we will review the details to submit the full application, but for the and the org card. And then that deadline will be August 28th. But again, full applications are invitation only. And the deadline for the submission of the org card and the application is August 28th, again at 5 p.m. So the top applications the committee will select will get site visits before they make final recommendations. And those site visits are slated for September 29th and 30th. Again, the program staff will contact you based on the committee's recommendation to schedule site visits on the 29th or 30th. Applicants will be notified as to the status of their applications following the Foundation's board meeting on October 13th. Usually give us a couple of days, but the board will meet October 13th, and we will notify you if you were selected for funding. Grants reception for this grant cycle is tentatively scheduled for November 5th, so you could put that as a placeholder. And the reports due for the 2-year grants, you will have an interim report due on November 11th, 2016, and then the final report will be November 11th of 2017. For the connector grants, those are the 1-year grants, your final report will be on November 11th, 2016. All right, those are the deadlines, and they are posted on our website. Do we have any questions? So we want to encourage you to review the template and the instructions for applying in the letter of interest. We have provided details as to the format, the font, the spacing. We want to remind you to not go beyond the 3-page limit. Additional pages will not be sent to the committee. We will notify you upon our review of the LOI if it exceeds 3 pages and ask you to cut it or condense it. And if you don't respond, we will just cut it off at the 3rd page. Please adhere to the template and make sure the contact person is correct. You may submit your LOI for feedback prior to the deadline. Please email a draft to program@fresnoregfoundation.org. I will review them and provide feedback. Now, it may be at odd hours of the night. It is not going to be during business hours. I will get through them as they come in order. I've already received 2, and I've provided feedback. So I will do it as soon as I am able. But I will not review any LOIs the day before the deadline or the day of the deadline, okay? So please feel free to go review it and start it. I know that these are very hard and challenging, and I'm happy to provide the feedback. But again, please be prepared for non-business hours for the feedback, okay? All right, and we're going to go over the LOI right now. Yes, and Kelvin's going to add a few comments.
I just want to share that I did share the LOI templates with all of you right now via this webinar. I provided both of the templates as well as the handout that Michelle shared. And so when Sandra reviews those templates right now, she will be referencing those specific documents. Before you do that, Sandra, I think we still have a couple of questions. One question that has came in says, another question, are the accelerator grants also not for direct services but for policy and advocacy? I think there's still some clarity around what the intent of the accelerator grants are.
The intent of the accelerator grants are for programming. So while we have allowed for some, actually the expectation is that you understand the policy that intersects the issues that you're addressing with your program. It is not for advocacy. We did not provide an advocacy funding scenario this year, simply because we've had a lack of response in the past. It has not been the most compelling grant cycle. It seems like everybody is more interested in the program piece. And so just as a matter of narrowing the universe, we are not specifically providing resources for the advocacy. The rationale in the past has been that the program grants we know include staffing. You have to hire competent, experienced staff. And to do both advocacy and provide the resources for the cost of implementing a program, may get a bit much. So we have kept the program dollars and the program grants for accelerator separate from advocacy. So the intent of the accelerator grant is not for advocacy. That being said, we do expect the applicants to have an understanding of advocacy and policies that intersect your project. If you had a component of it, a small component, that is relevant to your programming, the implementation of your programming, make the compelling case.
Will the site visit be for the lead organization or for all partner organizations if they're invited for a site visit?
If you were invited for a site visit,
if you are invited for a site visit, it will be the lead, and we will request that you have your partners there that you have listed in the application. We are not asking for random partners, but those partners that you share in the application, we will encourage you to invite them. And I hope everybody heard my response on the question before regarding the policy. Okay, great. Okay. Did that answer the question for the policy question? Please send Kelvin a yes or no. Or please feel free to say, I'd like to talk to you more about it.
One more question about that.
One more question about the deadline.
When will the LOI invitations go out?
Well,
Kelvin just gave you the LOI template. They're due on the 15th. So the committee will meet.
We have a very short turnaround, so I believe we are
August 4th is when they will meet.
So the committee will meet August 4th to review LOI. Is that what the calendar says?
Yeah.
So our committee will meet August 4th to review LOI. We will notify you by the end of that week to let you know you've been invited for application. We do not delay on invitations. We know how important they are. We want you to have as much time as possible to work on them. But the committee will meet August 4th to review these LOIs. And while there's 3 pages, we've already done 2 webinars. So I think we were at 5 organizations so far. We haven't added today's, which clearly takes us to around 90 organizations. So given our experience in this grant cycle and with this number,
so we have 90 organizations, we're going to expect maybe 82 organizations who actually submit an LOI. That's going to be at least 240 pages for them to review. So they're going to review them carefully, and the intent of the questions in the LOI is to help us gauge which programs would most align with the eligibility criteria for each of the funding scenarios. So you really want to think about your questions and really keep in front of you the eligibility criteria. Even though you're not writing your application, are your answers aligning with the eligibility criteria? Because that's what we're going to be looking at. Okay, so let's go over the LOIs and then we'll take more questions. So here's what I want to go over the LOIs. We've been very clear in number 1 through 4 for instructions. So this is the spacing and the font. So you have these documents sent to you. We're going to bring these up for you to see, I believe, on the screen. Here we go. So number 1 through 4, instructions for you. Sessions, we have the dates for the information sessions, review the eligibility criteria and the high impact guidelines. Please keep that in front of you as you're writing this. Complete the LOI 12-point font, 1.5 spacing, and do not exceed 3 pages. Submit it via Flex. We're going to go over that in the next segment of how to log into Flex. And please follow the instructions, and the deadline is July 15th. We will have on here, be notified notified whether they are not. You are invited by Wednesday, August 5th. As I mentioned, August 4th is when the committee is meeting, and then the full applications are due August 28th. The questions are straightforward. We've given an approximate amount, to write for each. Please stay in the order. Answer those questions in order. So both the connector and accelerator grants you have available, and if you are applying to both, then you would need to log on twice or to create two cards or two applications essentially for this. So you can't submit two in one, but we will go over that in the Flex segment. So that's the LOI, and we've got a question.
I think there is still a looming.
I am here.
I am here.
There's still a question.
I think someone would still like to get an example of what a specific policy change would be.
So if you would like to talk in greater detail, then we can. The takeaway, and if you look at the eligibility criteria for Accelerator, is these are for program grants. They are for programs. So if you are thinking about the bulk of your program to be advocacy, this is not going to align, because how does that demonstrate with clear benchmarks academic success by the third grade? So in the 0 to 8, that is going to be the intention. These accelerator grants have to demonstrate academic success for children 0 to 8. So you're either preparing them before they get into school, and you've got to demonstrate how your program is actually preparing them. So you'll need to know a little about kindergarten assessment, curriculum and testing. So, there's going to be some knowledge about that from the applicant. Or if they are in school, how your program is actually taking them from one reading level, grade level to the next. So that is the intent of the accelerator grants. So if you have any further questions around advocacy, please call me and we can have a longer discussion. Okay, so let's go over. Do we have any more questions before we go over? Okay, here we go. We're going to go through this so we can get to Flex. So the requirements for applying, here are the eligibility. This is very straightforward. You have to be a 501c3 organization or a government agency. You can be an individual or community group, but you have to have a fiscal agent that has one of these status. You can apply if you're a public agency, an educational institution, and services programs provided in one or more of the geographic areas in Fresno, Madera, Tulare, Merced, Mariposa, and Kings County. So your organization does not have to have an address in the Central Valley, but your program and services have to be in our regional footprint. So this is very straightforward. This is how we measure financial health. So please review this. It's posted on the website and it is in your handout. Grant restrictions. Fresno Regional Foundation will not consider grant requests for the following: previously incurred expenses, fundraising by one agency on behalf of another. We won't fund endowments. We also will not fund institutions limiting their services to persons of a single religious sect or denominations, and we do not give competitive grants to individuals. All right, we have no questions, so let's go over the reporting requirements. So review the final report form requirements carefully before applying, and when you get into Flex, you'll be able, there's a link there for the report for you to review. Organizations must be prepared to comply with all reporting requirements at the end of the grant period. Failure to submit the final report may disqualify the grantee from future funding requests. you will be asked to provide electronic copies of press releases and/or media contacts resulting from the grant award. We also welcome photos, newsletters, mailing lists, and for you to share your success throughout the year as we progress towards the final report. We use this information to increase your profile in the community by highlighting your great work to donors and to other funders. All right.
I also want to add that in your report, please be mindful that we do review both the report and application together. And we expect that what you say in the application is addressed in the report, meaning that you have collected the information that you said you would collect and that you are addressing the outcomes that you said you would address in the funded application.
Okay, so
we are going to go into the flex portion of this. Just a few things before we get into that, and I will recap it at the end also. Regarding your letter of interest, the amount that you put in the letter of interest has to be the amount that you apply for if you're invited for a full application. You cannot put in $100,000 and then in the application phase put in $250,000, or put in $50,000 for the connector grant and then later in the application put in for $75,000. The amount that you're applying for in the LOI will carry over to the application phase. You cannot increase it. All right, and again, be sure to review, even at this letter of interest phase, review the reporting requirements. We are asking for a lot of information about your participants, including the parents. So you need to be prepared to ask the information, and it will come up in the evaluation state. If you happen to get a site visit, we're going to want to know, do you collect this? And if you say no, and you're going to start, we're going to ask you, how are you going to start this? And what is the plan to implement something that you have not been practicing? So that's going to be really important. All right, let's go into Flex. And I think we're good on time.
Great, so I will take over. As many of you may be aware, we've transitioned to a new grant making system. The LOIs will be submitted via our new Flux grant making system. In a moment, I will take you to how you will do that. I just want to recap that there are 3 steps for many of you. You will need to create an account on Flux. If you had an Olga account, please be mindful that that account does not work. You need to request a new username and password, and we will link your grant request history to that if you have one. The next step will be that you submit an LOI, and remember, you need to submit 2 if you're applying to both funding priorities. The LOIs must be submitted separately. Lastly, if you're invited, we will walk through with your organization how to complete the rest of the application in Flux. So I'm at our home page right now. And from here, there are several ways to get to Flux. One, you can click on the grant making button here, or click on Flux Login at the very top of the screen. So I've gone ahead and logged in. I do want to show you what the login looks like. The Request an Account button is here. We have several pieces of information that we ask that will be used in your application and to create your username and password. If you ever lose your password, you can reset it by clicking on the Reset Password link. and entering your work email that you used to sign up. So once I log in, I end up to this page that says it's welcome, and it's got some instructions. When you are complete, when you're ready to submit your LOI, you will click on this link here called Competitive Grant Request. That begins a new request. You'll fill out this information here, including the amount you're requesting. And it is important that you select the appropriate grant cycle, as it will, the application will change based on your request. So I'm going to select the sample one here. And I'm going to click Save. And now that I have saved it, it identifies this application as a high impact application. And so I have links to the templates here, but I can also attach my LOI here. So to attach your completed LOI, you will first click Edit, and then you will click on the Add Letter of Interest. You will click on Add Files. You will select the file, let's say this one, and then you will label it as a letter of interest. Please be mindful that we have other categories here, and you want to label it as a letter of interest. And you click Start Upload, and you'll notice that it is now attached. When you're ready to submit, I'm letting this save right now. You will have the option to submit up here. So I just completed an accelerator grant. If I am also submitting a connector grant, I would do this step over again, meaning start a new grant request, and this time select high impact and the funding priority connector grant, and attach the connector LOI. Okay, I'm going to transfer over to Sandra, who will finalize the webinar.
All right. So the sooner you get onto Flex, the better. Okay? So staff is in the office during business until 5, 6. They will respond as quickly as they can if you email after hours or call after hours, but we encourage you to get on Flex as soon as you are able. So let's go over some final tips and then take questions. Again, if you have further questions or comments about the eligibility criteria or selection criteria for either the funding scenarios, feel free to give me a call and we could have a longer discussion. Be sure to populate the amount in the grant and the LOI, and that amount has to be the same in the application. There's no adjustments to increase it. I did receive an email from a couple of participants who are from the same organization that you are on. It is, again, critical that your organization, you, the individual representing your organization, is registered and logged on so that we can verify your participation. These information sessions were a requirement to even submit an LOI. If we cannot verify that you participated, then you cannot submit an LOI or we won't accept it. As part of our fair and transparent competitive grant making process, we have communicated this requirement and so therefore we have to verify all individuals representing their organizations before we accept an LOI. And submit your LOIs as soon as you can, and I will review them and provide feedback as they come in. Okay, that's all we have. Are there any additional questions? I'm looking at Kelvin.
How do you the question is, how do you verify participation in this webinar?
Each of you have registered, and we have a log of it. So we have a log, and this webinar, this particular webinar that we're using, the support, the technology, records all the logins and how long you've been on the webinar. So we will share a list of those who have participated, and that's the list that we will go by to verify the organization's representation in these, one of the 3 webinars. We have another question.
For the accelerator grant, the grant duration set for 2 years only, or can organizations be granted only for 1 year?
Accelerator grants are 2-year grants. They are not 1-year grants.
Do either of the grants require audited financials?
Yes. It is part of the threshold for applying to us. If your organization, again, if you go back to the eligibility, and this is our threshold for all grant cycles, if your receipts are more than $500,000, an audit is required, a third-party audit. So that's what we refer to as an independent or external audit. Only for those organizations with gross receipts more than $500,000. And if you want to talk further about that, we can talk directly and we can answer your questions. And again, we understand the audit process is a year delayed. So let's say last year was your first year in exceeding $500,000 in receipts. Of course, we're not going to expect an audit. Okay, we know there's a delay. So these are for those organizations, let's say in 2013, that you exceeded $500,000 in 2013 and in 2014. Yes, we're going to expect an audit. And we have another question.
You say that we cannot increase the amount requested. However, if we find that we have overestimated the request amount, is it okay to decrease the amount requested if invited to apply?
Yes. You can decrease the amount, you just can't increase it. We have one more question.
There was no login to the webinar, but does using URL emailed automatically indicate attendance? I can answer this one. Yes, the webinar, the link that was sent to you is unique to you, and it registered your participation. We will get a list of everybody who participated. I can see who is on the webinar right now. If you have questions, I can see that your mics are muted. I can see your participation level. So everything has been captured.
Okay, I hope that answers your question. All right, well, that is all that we have for this webinar presentation. We appreciate your time. We know that these dollars are important to your work and your organizations. We look forward to reading your LOIs, and for those of you who get invited for full applications, we look forward to getting to the application phase. We are here to support you and answer any questions. Please be mindful that as we get closer to deadlines, we are processing the information for committee and for your submission. So that will be our focus coming into deadlines. Please go to Flex as soon as we're off of this and start that process, because that's where you will submit your LOIs. It's important for you to get familiar with it and create your usernames and passwords. All right. Again, email program@fresnoregionfoundation.org, which is on the screen, for any additional questions. And we look forward to our continued work together. Have a great afternoon, and we'll talk or see you soon. Thank you.
Following this webinar,
you'll all get an email
with a copy of the template, LOIs, as well as a list of those that have participated in the in-person information session, as well as the two webinars. So we're making that list publicly available for everybody to know who has attended and met this requirement. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.